Hello and welcome to Making a Metaverse. My name is Dan and this is the podcast where we break down the process of making a metaverse. We can do that because we are doing it ourselves. As always, I am joined by the chief metaverse scientist, Robbeh Cochrane. How you doing, bud?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you doing, except for that turtleneck jumper that you've got on?
I knew you were going to say something about the turtleneck, but actually confidence is really important when you get dressed. And
Okay.
I have that, clearly.
All right, Hugh Grant.
Okay. Do you know what, Rob? I'm running out of superlatives to describe you as, so that's why I've got quite a lame beginning there, I think.
No, I get it. You do your best, but there's so many adjectives you can use that are appropriate.
Rob, can we just clear something up for the audience straight away? Like, how smart are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
I guess it depends on what you ask. I'm smart enough to not wear a turtleneck like that. So how smart are you? And I'll just use that as a measure.
Let's move on. As always, thank you so much for everyone that tuned in last month. If you didn't hear, we had James Ashton join us from the Centraland. Great guy, great insight. Go watch it, check it out. It had our most downloads on Spotify ever. I'm really good for these stats.
We love it. How many?
Well, we don't reveal that on air, you know?
Why not?
7. So please go listen to it because those downloads are what allow us to keep making this show, right?
Yeah. Did they?
Well, you said if I don't get more, then we're off.
Yeah, well, you have to keep pushing it, right? You tell me that you are, the pinnacle of marketing talent, and you're paid like you are. So if you can't get more than 7 downloads on Spotify, we're gonna have to consider your remuneration.
There we go, guys. This is like a one-to-one right now. I'm about to be fired live on air. I don't mind, though. It's been a good ride. Rob, today we're talking about blockchain gaming. We've got a great guest. We've got Omar coming in the show later from PolkastarterGaming. The guy's a legend. I'm looking forward to talking to him. But Rob, what I want to ask is, you started in blockchain gaming, didn't you? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think that was probably my initial foray. So, like everyone, I started by learning and understand about what the blockchain is, what Bitcoin is, what Ethereum is, what smart contracts are, and so on. And I think, some people who may be listening are fairly familiar with my story. I think when I understood smart contracts... I'm suggesting that people in our community that are listening would have probably heard me speak about my sort of personal...
Never shuts up about it, that's why.
I always get asked a question, so I answer the question.
Go on.
You're not letting me answer the question. Maybe it's because you're a little bit tight around the neck today. But
that's the funniest thing you've ever said, and you did it on air.
In my life.
Yeah.
After smart contracts, figuring out and understanding what they were... I started to look into the ways that they could be practically applied. One of the big things that jumped out to me was gaming. The idea that you could have like NFTs and provable ownership and permissionlessness and decentralized kind of ownership models and whatever else. It really kind of became obvious. And I think, I kind of stumbled into a pet project that were one of the very earliest, I guess. Alongside kind of Axie Infinity. That's where I started. I met Idon there. We were playing that game, doing some trading and of assets and, kind of grew from there, really. So, yeah.
So you've kind of seen, I guess, the evolution of blockchain gaming from its earliest kind of inclinations.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like everything in life, you see that things do cycles. I remember... probably in sort of 2017, 2018, there was like a big emphasis on the difficulty of people being able to come in and play. And now it's kind of been spoken, in terms of like onboarding, user onboarding, needing a Web3 wallet and whatever. And some of the biggest kind of challenges that were being sort of tackled at that time was scalability, the cost of transaction fees on the ETH network. So this is around like Matic Polygon started to come into the fore. And questions around like Web3 wallets and users needing to understand how to transact on the blockchain and blah, blah, blah. And then that kind of died down a little bit. And now it's spoken about like it's this new thing again. Like, all of a sudden it's like so important to have like a user-friendly UI UX like it wasn't back then. And all of a sudden it's important to talk about like scalability. It's like, no, these are things that were there in sort of like 2017, 2018. But the market kind of the industry sort of seemed to do a little bit of a cooling off period where there were more of a focus on getting, I would say, the Web3 native users in and involved and playing the games and not worrying too much about, traditional users. And I think the thesis behind that was mainly that it was to do with the fact that Web3 players would spend a lot more money on NFTs and a lot more money on, the games themselves. So, the average Web3 player on NFT might spend, $10,000 a year. There is research on this. I don't know it off the top of my head because it's been a little while since that came out. Whereas, the average traditional gamer might spend, $5, $10. So for every one Web3 player that you could get playing, that'd equal 1,000 or 10,000 like traditional game players, right? So there was more of an emphasis as you build the game with exciting kind of blockchain activations around your Web3 players. You don't worry too much about like onboarding of mass adoption. But then that narrative has kind of like shifted again back towards the importance of having these really familiar UI UX kind of experiences for players to enable for onboarding of mass adoption. I think everybody in the industry that has been building since 2017, 2018, these gaming experiences have always had one eye on, we need to make this available for mass adoption as well. But now it's almost like been shouted about as though, it's a new thing. It's not. It's always been there. It's just been recognized that as a startup kind of industry and business, you have to focus on the users that are already there and to make sure they're happy and accommodate them before thinking about how you can kind of branch out into new markets.
Do you think the quality wasn't there back early on in terms of the games themselves and the experiences? Was it more about the blockchain then and the games are a bit kind of secondary? Maybe that's why they're becoming more popular now, would you say?
100%, yeah, 100%. I think, in sort of 2018, 2019, I think it was more about how you could gamify the blockchain experience. And of course, having a game to accommodate that was even more fun. I remember the whole reason that we launched ChainGuardians was that we noticed that we felt there was a gap in the market. The games that existed were all purely focused on, the gamification of blockchain experience and creating new economies, if you like, creating new ways of earning and revenues and ownership models was the emphasis on NFTs. And there wasn't much kind of maybe attention paid to the detail, I would call it. So, for example, the quality of the artwork, it was all pixelated. And that's fine, that appeals to a particular audience, but it was still, that was a niche within a niche. There was no high quality artwork, there was no high quality storytelling, there was no high quality gaming experiences in general, nothing familiar in particular at that time. So those games were brilliant for what they were. But extremely basic from a traditional gaming experience point of view from traditional games. So that's why ChainGuardians, we put a heavy emphasis on the quality of the artwork, on the quality of the storytelling. And at the time, believe it or not, even as a kind of mobile RPG, it was still kind of one of the more prominent games itself in the space. So that was our angle and our niche. But you're absolutely right. I think user expectation has evolved with the market as the market has evolved and grown. Now people want all of that plus the beauty of the kind of traditional games too. The problem is that the vast majority of teams and companies are not, in inverted commas, or haven't been, in inverted commas, capable of that, because you're talking about two different industries there and the intersection of the two. Traditional game companies might be brilliant at making traditional games, but not creating decentralized economies, decentralized ownership models, and integration of blockchain tech, NFTs, and chains. So it's a big challenge to kind of, basically compile and project manage the integration of those two industries in those two worlds.
I'm looking forward to seeing maybe Omar can sort of tell us a bit more about that, actually. That's really interesting. Rob, can I get your opinion on something? Do you think the Metaverse, would you consider that a game, a blockchain game, ultimately?
No, I wouldn't. I think, there's probably an argument either way, and there's always like a nuance of meaning. But for me, a metaverse is something that a blockchain game could plug into. And I think, I'm talking about that as a metaverse as a product and not the metaverse as an ideology, right? The metaverse of it as it being the evolution of the internet and these interconnected experiences via avatar and different platforms.
It's almost a publishing service, right?
Yeah, in some ways, it's a bit like a metaverse is like your blank canvas. It's in some ways it's a bit like the operating system of these kind of decentralized experiences, and it's offering a platform for interconnectivity. A bit like your Windows or your Mac, and it has the Mac OS or the Windows operating system. That's more like what I imagine the metaverse to be. It's an enabler of those things. On the product, if we're talking about a metaverse as a product, a metaverse as an ideology is a different thing we won't go into. But from my perspective, I think blockchain gaming is a pivotal and vital part of being plugged into the metaverse as a product, and also metaverse from an ideological point of view as well.
And while we're on that, Rob, how is the development of the Cryptoverse coming along? That was a really unnatural segue, but we'll go with it anyway.
Go with it. We're just going to flow into it. Yeah, I think you're close to it, Dan. You're in most of the product dev meetings, so that you can keep an eye on what's going on and like plan marketing accordingly. It's going really, really well. Of course, we're still a fairly small team, which has its benefits and drawbacks. Benefits are that we're nimble and we're agile, and we can kind of jump on what we need to or feel that's most pressing to some extent. But it brings with it challenges in terms of the kind of scalability of how fast we can build things. We're still very much kind of on track for an MVP kind of experience of the metaverse. And
what is an MVP, just for the listeners?
Yeah, so MVP, calling it like the minimum viable plan. It's the proof of concept, if you like. I know we use some verbiage around along the lines of like alpha, but I think when that light paper was wrote, it was predominantly wrote by myself. So we've kind of substituted alpha for MVP, because I think alpha has a lot of ambiguity in terms of meaning. If you ask a game developer what they mean by alpha, they basically mean every product ready and developed, and it might have some major kind of bugs in it, but all of the kind of different features are there and ready to use. And I think that I've had to substitute that, because we recognise that this is an ever-evolving metaverse. To actually even argue that an alpha would be done in 5 years might be a challenge to do. So we've obviously focused on what we think are the most vital features for a metaverse to kind of be enjoyable and to be experienced, and actually to be available to be built upon by the community and the landowners and the wider kind of businesses or brands or whoever might be doing so.
Yeah, and do you know what? I sort of, like you say, I come into those Friday meetings where you do the play testing, and actually you can see, I can see just the development from each week, like the more content going in. Just every single week, it's like, oh, there's another 10% more content, there's more cars, there's like billboards now, there's like, art across the back of the buildings. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really exciting. It feels now like you feel like the bones starting to be put onto the wider skeleton. That's what feels like it's happening. So it might be a femur one week, right? Or it could be a patella the week after. But yeah, building the metaverse is like it's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Always. There's never been something where we've developed it and it's like, okay, that's it now. We can move on from that, because we're building on Unreal 5, and that in itself is constantly being updated. So you constantly have to update the application itself, the project itself, to the new version of the engine, which means that you have to go back to some of the features you developed and then upgrade them or change them, or they've become obsolete. And that's going to be something that you spent 3 weeks on and it's obsolete now. For example, Carlos, environmental artist, probably spent a month, maybe 6 weeks developing a really powerful tool for kind of procedural generation of foliage, trees and such. And then I think 5.1 they've released Nanite for foliage, and it's made kind of all that work redundant now, because Nanite for foliage it's more performant. So now he has to go back and basically implement the Nanite for the foliage, which just means again the world becomes more performant. But it's just an example of where you can't wholly kind of just rest on your laurels and settle on that. You have to be constantly kind of at that leading edge, that cutting edge of the tech, to make sure that you're providing the best metaverse experience you can.
Great. Rob, now I know it's your favourite time of the week. It's now time for the Mark Zuckerberg joke of the month.
Woohoo!
Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm trying to curate a joke this week that's going to go to your personal taste, because you're quite high society, you're quite smart, and as you would say.
Why do you always do this to me?
So we're going to. So are you ready? This is
turtleneck.
really cultured joke.
Go on.
Okay, and I've come up with this myself actually. So
Is this like completely original?
This is, well, someone gave me something, but this is mostly an original joke that I spent, a bit of time on working out. So let's see if I've got the
Netflix
chops.
the original.
Let's go. Are you ready?
See.
So, Rob, you'll love this because you're really into literature. That's your whole thing. You were a teacher, weren't you? English teacher. So, this is right up your street.
Oui.
Okay. So a drunk William Shakespeare walks into a barber's in the metaverse.
Okay. Oh my God.
How's that for a start?
He kind of didn't even have loads of hair, but go on, I like it.
So a drunk William Shakespeare walks into a barber's in the metaverse.
Uh-huh.
To cut or not to cut, he shouts, having a great time. Right? The barber looks confused. Mr. Shakespeare, but you cannot get a haircut. You're completely bald.
Sorry,
said Shakespeare whilst giving the barber a little wink. I guess you could say I'm speaking metaphorically.
You didn't come up with that on your own.
I did. What do you think?
Did you mean to say metaphorically then?
No, metaphorically.
Oh, right, okay, right. Now that's better now. Okay. I was like, I thought there must be some pun there, but I didn't hear you well.
Because he does metaphors.
Right, okay. And you've got the meta in there as well.
Metaphorically. It's absolutely
clever.
It's beautiful. So I wrote that on the train.
It's clever.
Someone said to me metaphorically, and I was like, okay, how can I get that into a joke? And I think I've done it really well.
I think you've done well, yeah. That's a good one, but it's one where you, rather than you're in stitches about, you appreciate the craftsmanship behind it.
Once again, you did not get it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is right up your street as well, and this is this is not an original joke, but I think it is on theme for this.
Okay.
So did you know Mark Zuckerberg writes poetry about writing poetry?
Yeah.
He calls it the Metaverse.
Oh God. Oh God! Yeah, that's clever.
That is
clever. That is a
clever,
clever one.
I did like that one.
Yeah. It also speaks like I don't know. There's something going on there about the kind of narcissism behind writing poetry about poetry.
You have to make everything boring, don't you? Like, what are you talking about?
No,
there?
but no, one of my favorite writers was Bukowski. You know Bukowski, right? And he used to talk about like hating. People writing about writing.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't, I don't know. He would have alluded to it like, I don't know, shit.
Go on.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact
your intelligent
quote.
conversation, everyone. If you're looking to tune into
I can Google the quote. There's something that it says about writing.
So Bukowski's quite interesting, actually. I'm surprised you like him because Rob famously hates kind of any kind of grammar mistakes, or he just gets mad at all. If you spell something wrong, apparently it's my job to have attention to detail, but I wouldn't have known that. So
that's how we inspire WoW. That's one of our cultural values.
That is one of our cultural values.
Attention to detail.
Well, my point is, Rob, is that you are very kind of like anal, I would say, around kind of spelling, right, and grammar. Yeah. But Bukowski was famously, he kind of played by his own rules.
Yeah, but can I give you a couple of reasons why? First of all, he was like believed to be quite heavily dyslexic. Second of all, he was never like educated to any like strong level, right? He was a product of his times. And third of all, he would bosh it out in either like written handwriting or at best a typewriter, in which you don't have like the backspace key like we do these days. It's like Jack Kerouac's spontaneous prose, right? From On the Road and stuff. Just devoid of lots of grammar, and the reason for that is because he was writing with such kind of passion, enthusiasm, and energy.
That's me. That's me. That's me
no,
when I'm writing tweets. When I'm doing tweets, I'm doing such energy. I'm there,
and they're writing literature narrative. They're not writing like a business kind of announcement and such, right? So there's no real excuse.
I'm not educated.
That's not true.
Yeah, you're right. I'm very educated reader.
So it's the difference between laziness and kind of product of your times.
Where do I sit on that scale?
Well, you feel out for yourself.
And now it's your turn, listeners. This month's competition is to send in your best Metaverse jokes. You can make them, you can steal them like me. Your goal is to make Robbie laugh. Get your jokes in on social media. Tag us and we'll pick the best ones and read them out next month.
The easiest way to make me laugh is just to do something with you and that turtleneck. It can be a joke, it can be a photo, screen grab, whatever you want.
And you know what? When I was dressing myself this morning, I thought this was a risk because I can get taken the mick out of. But who cares? I'm over it.
Well, I was having a conversation with the wonderful gentleman who do our production, and I was explaining to them about your recent hair cut.
Right. So we're going to get lots of...
talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I used to have curtains maybe about a year ago before it was fashionable, before Jack Grealish did it. So.
Dan is the guy who would have had, like, you remember when David Beckham had the curtains in '98 and dyed his hair blonde? That had been Dan.
Well,
but now it's like, I'd have understood that at like 15, 16, 17. But now we're what, like early 30s, and you just had your haircut modelled off Jack Grealish.
I've got a story actually. So you're actually bang on. So do you know, like during the 2000,
I know I would be.
I think it was the 2002 World Cup or something like that. I got myself one of those mohawks. And I dyed it. It's true. I dyed it like blonde as well in the middle, and I stuck it up right. And this is true. I went to school that day being so confident, like I am the bollocks. Like honestly, girls are gonna go mad for me. I'm gonna just be like, pulling birds all day, having the greatest day of my life. I sat down in science. This is true. And I looked over, and the hardest guy in school probably would have been someone like you, actually.
Yeah, me and my muscles.
Yeah. He looked over and he went, "Oh, look at Pope's stupid hair," in the class, yeah? And everyone laughed. But because of my hair, I was so confident. I went like that. I stuck my finger at him, right? And he went, "That's it, you're battered after school." And I went home at lunch. That's true. I was so scared. I was like, "Mum, you can't send me back to school."
You see, I just need to give you a little bit of a push, and then you have all these wonderful kind of anecdotes and stories that they're all true. That's the amazing thing.
I was you won't believe it. People look at it and think I'm some sort of cool dude, but I wasn't that cool at school. So it's a surprise, I imagine,
not to me, but maybe to viewers. Yeah,
they think I was a successful lad.
Listeners.
So get your jokes in, everybody. Send them through to us, social media, tag us. There'll be a form. There'll be something on the post that says how to do it. But we want to see your jokes. There'll be a prize. Rob, what is the prize? Live on air. Come up with it right now.
Oh, what? Like just on the cusp? I mean, what? I mean, I don't even know.
Some sort of signed photo of Robbie, I think.
No.
Oh,
come on. Just for all the listeners there as well, Dan did the kind of fingers up thing to this really hard guy that he then needed to go home from school because he was scared of. But the prize, I would say access to the MVP.
Okay, there we go. That is a wow. That is a great prize. So those 7 listeners, one of you is going to get access to the MVP, and that's like most of the people we know already. So brilliant. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, we're not going to I think we're not going to let everybody in, just because There's a huge amount of kind of work to do still on the networking side of things with multiplayer. Just have to be honest, that's a massive mammoth task. It's going to take some time. So we're going to kind of curate who can come in to the MVP. And obviously we want to make sure a bunch of that goes to landowners. But I think it'd be a cool prize for somebody to get guaranteed access into that.
And to get your jokes in, do good ones. Tag us, Twitter, LinkedIn. Come on, everyone's available. Everyone sends me the jokes anyway. Now's your time to shine and try and beat me at the joke game. Great, Rob. I'm really excited now because we've got a great guest joining us. Stop doing that with your eyes. It's putting me off. I'm really pleased to have Omar Ghanem from Polkastarter, head of gaming. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Making a Metaverse. Nice to meet you, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, guys. I'm excited for this chat. I can't wait to hear what you guys throw at me.
And you two know each other, right, Robbie? So this is you guys have known about each other for a while. You're old friends, I imagine-ish, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, Omar, when he started working as head of PolkastarterGaming, we were introduced by Daniel, who's obviously one of the founders at Polkastarter. And Omar's been really supportive, forthcoming, helpful with both ChainGuardians and also Cryptoverse. Omar practically led that up on behalf of Polkastarter for the land sale, so he's a really positive influence for us in general, and I know he and Polkastarter do amazing, awesome work for the wider kind of GameFi community as well. So.
And Omar, do you have anything nice to say about Robbie, or is he just?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I've known Robbie for quite a while now, and I think all the interactions have been quite positive.
Positive.
A lot of great memories. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of great memories, right? You think about the Cryptoverse sale, you think about all the ChainGuardian stuff and the stuff that you guys are still working on now. I mean, I think it's fair to say that it's been quite a ride, and it's been fun kind of sharing the space with Robbie and the rest of the team.
And Omar and Paul's, you guys own some land yourselves, I think, don't you, as well? So I don't even know if you know that, but I'd be interested to know.
I know. I actually own some myself, like personally as well. Besides,
legend. There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, guys, stop. Bigging each other up that much. What about me? Omar, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you. Can you tell us a bit more about kind of your journey into the kind of blockchain gaming space?
Well, I think unusual considering all the people that I've met in the space over the past 2 years or so. So I actually did not, contrary to popular belief, which is like majority of the space, I did not come from a finance background, and then try to like force fit it within gaming. So I studied marketing. I worked in social media. I worked with, brands that have nothing to do with gaming, like L'Oreal and Visit Dubai and Dubai Tourism and so on and so forth. And then due to my passion for gaming and the fact that I've played video games all of my life, I then started doing the same thing for gaming brands. So I worked with Nvidia, Ubisoft, Riot Games, a couple other names in there, in like the Middle East region. So MENA, esports and organizing events and influencer campaigns and all that kind of stuff. And then I looked at, crypto and the blockchain space, and I, was fascinated by the concept, but definitely wasn't as, hooked by all the DeFi protocols. What really got me was the gaming aspect because, that's something you don't really put a number of years of experience on it, but I've played video games since I was 4, and I'm now 26, so that's quite a number of years. If I know anything in the world, I know the gaming world, and so I decided to kind of almost take a leap of faith. I looked at all the stuff that was out there in the gaming space. I realized it was super early, which was kind of an issue because the quality wasn't so high at the time and still obviously lacks, but also B was a great opportunity because it was like, anyone can step in and make a difference and do whatever they want to do and build whatever they want to build. So really a leap of faith because I just cold DM'd Daniel, the CEO of Polkastarter, and I was like, hey, I like what you guys are doing, but I think you need to focus more on gaming because that's kind of where I definitely see mass adoption coming in. And, gamers like me understand, digital collectibles. We've been in the metaverse for ages. It's just not the version that you guys are now trying to package, but we know what this is like, and it's easy to sell us ideas about, owning a digital identity, owning a skin, owning something that doesn't exist in real life. And, Daniel was already kind of on the same wavelength. We saw eye to eye, and immediately it was like, okay, cool, let's build this thing. And that's, what PolkastarterGaming has now turned into. But yeah, I mean, I'd say a different journey, but one that I'm obviously grateful for because I think it's almost like being one of the very early people to like mobile gaming or free to play or any of those like trends. Once upon a time, people called them trends that were going to come and go. Like this is the equivalent now where it's like blockchain gaming really is just starting. This is like infancy stages, but I mean, yeah, super stoked to be here with obviously all of you guys and everyone else that's building in the space.
Love it. What an intro.
Great intro. I love that you took that leap of faith. And do you know what? It sounds like a lot of people that were in this industry were kind of like blockchain experts, or like you say, finance experts to begin with. So there was like sort of a lack of kind of talent across all the disciplines. So now, like all the other people are coming in, like experienced game marketers and stuff. And that's what was missing, I think, because now it's all about the experience, I think, rather than about what's underneath it.
Well, Omar's bang
on. It wasn't enough.
Go on, mate.
It wasn't enough gaming people talking about gaming, to be honest. Like it was just finance people. Like now it sounds like it sounds quite funny, but back in the day, like this was genuine conversations that I would have with people where they would say, "This is a great game. It's revolutionary. It's gonna, everyone's gonna want to play this, blah blah blah." And then I would actually look at the game and realize it's like not a game. It's just like a whatever it could be. I mean, again, everyone has their own tastes, but you don't show someone a clicker, idle simulation. RPG and say like this is gonna take people away from Fortnite and Call of Duty and like this is what all the kids are gonna be playing. Like that's just not gonna happen. So I think maybe back in December of last year, January, early this year, maybe even all the way up to like March, out like we were looking at some tragic, gaming projects, and now the quality is just so much better. Forget the Unreal Engine 5 stuff and the AAA, stamps and whatever, but like just the genuine quality. I think more gaming people are now sitting at the table, and so the dynamic has changed a lot more, and you can't get away with all the stuff that you could get away with last year. Pretending like it's a game when it's just a financial model, staking protocol, whatever you want to call it.
This is what I said, saying, like, actually, Omar, we're talking about this exactly before you came on the call, actually. And I think that the industry has definitely gone through a period of maturation, let's say. Because I guess in the sort of 2017, 2018, which is when I first started, obviously ChainGuardians was founded sort of middle to back end of 2018, really. At that time, the emphasis was more about acquiring the users that were already in Web3. And I think the reasons for that was because, you know, the kind of the models around finances were that the vast majority of Web3 users would spend a lot more on their NFT assets and whatever else in you know, kind of comparison to a traditional game user. But you're absolutely right. I think it's what's needed to happen is that, you know, the actual conversations were happening then around, you know, how we get towards mass adoption, even as early as that. But I think it's become more prominent over the last sort of year or so, when the narrative of actually blockchain gaming is not only one of the strongest vehicles for kind of like, you know, use case and utility of blockchain, but actually it is probably the strongest, you know, kind of use case, or the strongest way to encourage mass adoption into blockchain. I think that's been an ideology that's more kind of acknowledged these days in the fact that, you know, gamifying the experience of coming into the blockchain, and actually kind of having people interact with the blockchain without even necessarily knowing too well, is going to kind of be the low-hanging fruit for users on board and onto it.
Do you know what I
look at all the chains,
sorry, go on, Omar.
right? No, I was just saying, like, look at all the chains that are all of a sudden turning into like gaming chains, and all the L2s that are suddenly like gaming focused L2s. I think it's quite funny, but I mean, I guess everyone is just starting to realize that. I think I read somewhere earlier that until now, like until today, even with the market being down and everything, 50% of the blockchain activity comes from games.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, assuming that you basically don't make any money playing any of these games. Like, people are still playing games. And I think that's one thing that's always constant. If you even look at, like, I'm sure if you pull up a stat from like COVID, the number of people that were playing games during COVID because they were in lockdown and obviously stuck at home, and, you know, therefore had to find some sort of gateway or escape or whatever, was much higher. So in pandemics, in, you know, crises, in recessions, and whatever it is, like, people will be stuck at home, and what do people do then? They seek entertainment, and what's the most immersive form of entertainment that you have? It's video games. So I think, to me, it's such a no-brainer that, like, if you're targeting anyone seeking mass adoption into crypto, into whatever your infrastructure, your chain, whatever it is, like, it just makes most sense to just look at gaming, because that's where, you know, the young, knowledgeable, educated, not afraid to try something out, that doesn't necessarily exist.
Yeah, exactly. And they are the customers of the future, aren't they? It's like, you know, if you want to be a long-term kind of, it can be a brand or a computer game publisher or anything, you've got to look at who your customers of tomorrow are. So the younger generation, and what are they moving towards? It's tech and games and so on. So it makes absolute sense. I couldn't agree with you more.
Can I just add something though, guys? Do you know what I think it's missing? And maybe you'll tell me otherwise, Omar. Actually, I think there's like the whole industry is missing like a killer app. Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the one game that you've got to go play right now on the blockchain? Do you know what I mean? Is that obvious? Can we say between us, we'll probably all say different things, or maybe not?
I'd argue with that, because I guess my thesis would be, actually, it's not about just having that one go-to. It's about having like a healthy competitive market where there's a number of different games, because not everybody likes playing RPGs, not everybody likes playing FPS, not everybody likes playing strategy games, not everybody likes playing card games, whatever. There is you know, we need quality games in all of those subsections of gaming as well, if that makes sense, you know. So I don't think that we need that kind of like that flagship one that everybody goes to.
Is there not, like, you know, like,
Omar might.
Yeah, you might have a different opinion there, and I would love to hear it. And I just think, like, you know, is that game that's going to be reviewed 10 out of 10 out there yet, you know, on the blockchain? That's my question to you guys.
No, not really. I mean,
Mm.
we so obviously on PolkastarterGG we do a bunch of game reviews and we only primarily look at, the actual game itself, and we
Mm-hmm.
kind of try to overlook as much as possible the chain stuff so that no one is evaluating stuff based on what chain the game is built on. But I can very safely say that nothing's a 10.
Yeah.
If you ask me what's a 10 in gaming, I'd say like God of War, Ragnarok, but like we're so far away from achieving anything like that. And even if you
Mm.
don't appreciate, story campaign games or whatever, you can look at that game and realize like the acting, the story,
Mm.
the mechanics, like all of it is so well thought out of. All of it is just
Mm-hmm.
perfectly designed that you can give it a 10 and like walk away comfortably. I don't think we have that in blockchain gaming yet. I don't know if we'll get it anytime soon. I agree with Robbie though. You don't really need one flagship title. I think it's more about the user experience. Like right now,
Mm.
the challenge is not. I mean, it's funny because I have the controller right here, but like the challenge is not competing with other Web3 games. It's competing with this,
Yeah.
right? Like in the end of the day, it's you're not
100%.
taking time off of my other Web3 game. I'm not
100%.
playing,
Yeah.
for example, Illuvium, and I'm gonna drop it to play big time.
Yeah.
I'm playing Warzone.
Yeah.
I'm playing Fortnite. I'm
Mm-hmm.
playing League of Legends. That's what you need to compete with. And I mean, you'll probably end up asking me this eventually, but like part of the reason why with the Game Awards, we called it just Game Awards, not like Web3 Game Awards, was this negative connotation of like, oh, it's
Yeah.
a good game for a Web3 game.
Yeah.
That really bothers me.
Mm.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is really good. By what standards? Oh, Web3 games.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what are the Web3 game standards? Like, oh, right here. So it just, I think we're so early, but it's definitely not a flagship title that's needed. I think it's just better user experience. I think it's easier onboarding. It's free to play stuff. I think Robbie mentioned this earlier. Like, it's stuff where you play the game and you don't really realize that it's a blockchain game. It's just a game.
Yeah.
But once you start doing transactions, once you start understanding that, oh, there's a financial aspect to it, I can actually sell my items, I can, sell this on the marketplace, whatever. Like that is when the blockchain should come in, not in the, here's how to sign into the game. Please download Metamask and
Yeah.
then figure out all that stuff just to get access to the game. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and also like I think you're 100% right, Omar. And I think one of the challenges that Web3 kind of blockchain gaming companies have is, as I'm sure you're aware, is that you're talking about two different disciplines as well. You're talking about, first of all, you need your high quality game production studio, but then you need to have all of the kind of, the blockchain tech stack as well to be able to make that happen. And obviously they are technically two separate industries which are in the process of amalgamating into one here. So it's only natural that all of these companies are likely to have, skills in one area but weak in another, and in the process, recruitment and quality of, and catching up to speed is in itself, takes time. And then if you combine that with the complexity of creating any sort of models where there's earning potential, and I use that fairly carefully, because obviously play to earn is the narrative around that is very difficult, where anybody can earn all the time anytime is not sustainable from any sort of economic models. You're always going to have some forms of inflation, and when your users dry up, you run into problems. So but any earning incentives, that brings with it security considerations, and when there's security considerations, that creates problems for user experience. And then obviously you're talking about, not only do you need blockchain skill set, game production skill set, but you also need security skill set, and you also need to also probably have some sort of new wave of game design skill set, which has never previously exist. I worked for 9 months with our game designer, and every time he would say, okay, I've done it, like, I've made a decision around the game design like this, it's got the gamers in mind and obviously get them playing, but that is counteractive, contradictory towards an actual earning incentive driven game. So you're talking about 4 or 5 kind of disciplines amalgamating into one to trying to create these new wave of gaming experiences. So there's a lot of problems with that. I'm sure Omar would also acknowledge some of what I'm saying there.
No, 100%. I mean, I honestly, I have a very unpopular opinion, which is like there's nothing wrong with traditional gaming as a business model. Like, I
Mhm.
think the Fortnite model is perfect. I think the ability to just play a game for free, have it be almost 100% skill based, but then offer cosmetics
Yeah.
purely for the sake of just looking different in game and feeling a
Mhm.
sense of, connection with your character. plus adding on top of that a battle pass, which then allows you to unlock
Yeah.
even more cosmetics. Like I think that in itself is just a perfect model to
Mm-hmm.
copy paste, but instead of using V-Bucks and
Mm-hmm.
credit card stuff and whatever, like you could literally just replace that with crypto. And
Yeah.
instead of just having random skins that anyone can own and you can't really sell if Fortnite decides to take it off the marketplace, like just turning those into NFTs. I think that Reddit use case is such a good example of what needs to happen in gaming, where you just stop calling them all these fancy words, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
stop
Mm-hmm.
telling people it's an NFT and stop attaching the description of non-fungible token, blah, blah, blah. Like just tell
Mm-hmm.
people it's a skin,
Yeah.
it's a digital collectible, it's an item in game, it's a weapon, it's a sword, it's a mystery box, it's a loot box, it's a
Mm-hmm.
battle pass. Like speak the language of traditional gamers and then they'll respond to you. But if you alienate them and kind of I felt like when I first got into the space, I was getting invited into like this cult where we all had to speak the same language and we all knew what the blockchain technology was and why Solana was this and why Ethereum was that. Like, I think if you push that aside and just focus on user experiences, quality games, moments, I think moments are so underrated. Like, when you think about video games from your past, from your childhood, you always think about that one moment where you beat a level or you played with your cousins or
Mm.
something happened. And that doesn't exist in Web3 gaming. Like right now, I want to say maybe 70-80% of games are not really designed to sustain these multiplayer online moments, right? It's
Mm.
super hard to even connect with one another. It's very difficult to get into a lobby if it's like matchmaking or whatever. So I think once we shift the focus and just simplify the business model to what's working, it's not like, Fortnite's failing and we have to revive it or save it. Like just use that model, but instead use blockchain tech and start seeing how you can improve the experience with the blockchain tech. I think that's when we genuinely win. But not a lot of people see that yet, and I think that's why the struggle exists. It's a lot of people are just trying different things, and you can almost see the space moves in ebbs and flows, where
Mm.
all of a sudden you see the same people doing the same thing. And at one point in time, it was just card turn-based RPGs, and
Mm.
everyone was copying Axie. All of a sudden, it stopped, and it became FPS games, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, everyone was making an FPS game. And I think now it's MMORPGs because there's a new one every day. So
Mm.
I just think a bit of originality, a bit of, just sound thinking about the target audience rather than trying to juggle all this jargon, and we'll be in a much better position in 2023 already.
I have a question for you, Omar, because I subscribe to your thought process there to a large degree. I guess the concern from a company perspective is that if you don't provide some sort of education to your users around the technology itself, if there is a situation where there's a security flaw, or because we read about the hacks that go on, and sometimes if it, for example, if somebody's building on Solana and the Solana chain goes down, it's not their fault. If there's a new chain comes out and there's a hack on the smart contract or whatever, and people lose all of their assets and their accumulated kind of maybe crypto earnings or whatever, it's like if a Web2 user is not aware of those risks, then obviously it's like the first person you're going to go and complain to is the company itself. And I guess from a company protection point of view, there are concerns around kind of just opening the floodgates in the way of like, let's just make this completely like a Web 2 experience. I say Web 2, but you know what I mean, like a traditional gaming experience, and just utilize the beautiful tech, which is, I agree with you, the big win. You're essentially assuming all of that risk, not only on behalf of the user, but also on behalf of any chain that you deploy on as well. But we've also we're all aware of it. Well, okay, we just have a centralized chain. Okay, Axie Infinity, 600 million, boom, gone, because it's too centralized. So I guess there's challenges there from a company perspective, which doesn't always jump out immediately to anybody. So I guess if you've got any, what are your opinions around that sort of particular predicament?
I think, and maybe they're not wrong in a way for that, but I think everyone got super excited about the concept of decentralization and didn't realize that a lot of people were still lagging behind. I think especially if you're already in the space, we really just fantasize about this world where your identity is only your identity and you don't have to give any data to anyone, and so on and so forth. But you forget that there are so many people that are very, very willing to give away whatever it is to have a better experience. They're
Yeah.
willing to give you their Gmail logins, their Facebook logins, their Twitter logins, and they're okay with that. And I think that's probably what we need to do. Like, just understand that there are different target audiences for these games and all of these chains and infrastructure partners or whatever that we're working with, because there will be the gamer that will want, their own wallet with, knowledge about that specific chain, with knowledge about what could possibly go wrong and so on and so forth. And then there will be the user that literally just wants to play a game.
Yeah.
You see it now in traditional gaming as well. Like, there are the geeks and the nerds that care about all the frames per second and getting the most out of their game and, the highest output, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's people that just want to play the game. Like, they just want to put the disc in, kick back, enjoy the game. And, game studios in traditional gaming cater to both. So they will give you all the information if you seek it. You will find all of that information. If you're digging up on NVIDIA or whatever, you will find that information. But if you also don't care, it's as simple as just clicking play. I think that's what we need to get to, where it's like a balance between custodial versus non-custodial,
Correct.
security versus decentralization, convenience versus this full sense of freedom. And then we educate the user base. So if they want to move over to the other side, it's like, well, all you need to know is this is what an NFT is, and this is what the blockchain is, and this is how it works, and then they're ready to go. But you can't just assume that everyone is ready for decentralization. I know way more people that are comfortable logging in with Gmail than using MetaMask. Not because they don't, care about the future, or they don't, respect their own sense of, I don't know, privacy or whatever. It's just convenience.
Can I just add something to that, actually? With MetaMask in particular, I feel like you have to remember your passcode and passphrase and things like that. People probably end up storing it on their computer anyway, which I think is probably less secure than having kind of Google Chrome look after it.
Well, I think MetaMask is a complicated one because everybody considers it the most decentralized Web3 wallet available. But actually, ironically, Consensus must store your private keys on some sort of centralized server somewhere, because the way that you access, well, let me rephrase actually, you store your passphrase on your computer in an encrypted file, which MetaMask access when you put in your password to confirm it is accurate, basically. So even that is quite centralized. You've got centralized ownership yourself of that file effectively, but it's encrypted and whatever. But, really the only truly decentralized access into Web3 is via core wallet, really. Because your private keys are not stored anywhere sort of online. I don't know if you'd sort of disagree with this, Omar, but I guess the irony of it is that everyone considers MetaMask as the most decentralized. It probably is, but it's certainly the most widely adopted. But when we were looking at these different kind of approaches that Omar's talking about versus custodial versus non-custodial and so on, because we were thinking about, obviously, for ChainGuardians and Cryptoverse, exactly like Omar's saying, you need to offer the ability for a user to log in like that as quickly. And the industry term is, in the traditional companies, from what I understand, traditional gaming companies, is time to fun. Like, they'll measure how long, many seconds it gets time to fun, time to play in the game. And I think like 5-6 seconds is what they're aiming for most times. So that's counterintuitive massively to Web3. So you want to have that option, and then you want to have the more decentralized option where you can use MetaMask or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like you also need to be an expert at user experience in a blockchain gaming company as well, or a metaverse company as well, because the gold standard is this kind of dual opportunity for a user. So
that's so spot on, because if you look at the upgrade between old gen to new gen consoles from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, yes, a lot has changed in 7 years and there's tons of updates, but the genuine biggest difference for a gamer that has played on the PS4 and now moved to the PS5 is how quickly you get into the game. So as soon as you click, you're in the game. There's no more of the super slow loading screen, and you go back to like the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 where you had that Sony entertainment and it loaded for a couple of seconds and you heard the sound, and if it went wrong, something was wrong, like that is all gone out of the window, and now you just click God of War, FIFA, whatever, and you're in the game immediately. So if traditional gaming is trying to shorten that time to fun, how do you expect to compete when you're adding more barriers? You're like, well, before you do that, you need to understand what MetaMask is. And if you want to do that, you need to go to MetaMask's website, and then you need to download like too many steps. I can't even imagine explaining to my friends like, hey, let's play this blockchain game together. But first, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
They'll just be like,
Yep.
come to Warzone because it's one click away. That makes way more sense to us.
Yep.
Wow, ideas there. I just want to go away and write stuff down because, you know, this is really applicable for us, and obviously to get that, like you say, people playing as soon as possible minus the complication. Omar, I wanted to ask you a quick question actually. Well, I've wanted to ask you a lot of questions actually, but I think we've talked a lot around the tech here, and we sort of talk about like why that's important and stuff. But what really fascinates me as a gamer myself is like that what makes a blockchain game good? Like when do we get to that point where blockchain games are good and actually fun to play? And are there any out there now that are doing this in a really good way that isn't kind of just all about the tech?
No, I think there are, to be honest. I mean, the whole point of us doing this Game Awards thing was to showcase those games. So I don't want to name names because then I'll forget some, but like Big Time is genuinely a fun experience to just play with your friends. It is dungeon crawling. It is a bit redundant if you keep doing the same dungeon over and over, but as a game, like it's not a Web3 game, if that makes sense. Like by the standards we were looking at a couple of months ago, like it's a genuine game that's just super fun. I think Illuvium's definitely onto something with their auto battler. Undead Blocks is really fun if you like Call of Duty Zombies, for example. I think the stuff we're seeing from Phantom Galaxies demos and Neon Heroes, like early gameplay footage, I think looks amazing. And I think in general, the space is just moving more towards like genres and specific like types of, gamers and what they look for, and, the card gamers and the people that like the chess and strategy and so on and so forth, that will definitely get to that point where, yes, all these games will offer great experiences. At the moment, like you mentioned this earlier, is there a 10 right now? I don't think so, but I think there definitely are 8s. There definitely are, 8.5s potentially. And I think a lot of these games are still in early alpha, early beta. Once they're actually, live for public launch, we know. So, I mean, obviously, working as part of a Web3 fundraising platform is you get to see a lot of stuff before it even reaches the audience. We know a lot of games that are coming to console. Like, that's huge. The fact that you can all of a sudden now be on the PlayStation Store or whatever, it's a completely different ball game. It's kind of like what happened when Blancos first went to Epic Game Store. It was, well, the entire, blockchain gaming space is like potentially 1 million players maximum. And all of a sudden, Blancos is in front of 180 million people just because they're on the Epic Game Store. And now more and more games are going into the Epic Game Store. And funny enough, Superior, the Gala game, is on Steam, obviously in a Web 2 version since they still don't allow NFTs. But it's getting to a point where the games are sharing platforms with, the Fortnites of the space and the Overwatches of the space and so on. So I think we are getting there right now. Yes, a couple of names that could be potential candidates to like let you have a couple of hours of fun, but I don't think there's anything that quite hooks you in yet. But I think it's, I could see it on the horizon. It's coming soon. If we continue down this, path of quality, getting in the gaming people to, sit at the table, not talking to the finance people as much anymore, and kind of keeping that conversation on the side because it's important, but not as important as the actual gameplay, I think we'll definitely get to a bunch of 9s and 10s over the course of 2023. And, I'm stoked for what happens in 2024 and 2025 and 2027. I'm convinced 100%, you cannot change my mind, that in a couple of years, I don't want to say how many, but let's just say in a couple of years, we will no longer need to have this conversation because they will no longer be blockchain games or Web3 games or anything like that. It'll just be games. It's the same conversation mobile gaming had, where it was the mobile gaming people and us, and now it's just gaming. And like, your grandmother plays Candy Crush and his grandmother plays God knows what, and it's all just gaming. I think we'll reach that point where the underlying tech will just be implied that, yes, this uses blockchain tech. Yes, this is how, instant payouts happen when you win a tournament in that game, but no one's going to care. Like, it's not going to be a question of this is on Solana, this is on Avalanche, this is on it's just going to be, this is a really good game. And that's it, full stop. You won't ask. It's not like we ask, oh, is this built on Amazon Web Servers, or do you guys use, XYZ tech? Like, no one cares about this stuff in gaming, and no one should. So I think that is the end game for this entire industry, just reaching a point where, we just become one with the traditional gaming space, to be honest.
Then I suppose my follow-up question is when do the traditional Web 2 kind of game developers get involved in this, or like are they already exploring this, and are they worried about it? Are they excited about it? Do we know anything about how they see this change in the industry?
They're definitely aware about it. I can tell you that. Everyone's got an opinion, and I think, rightfully so. The skeptics are skeptical because they've seen a lot of, concerning things happen in the crypto space in general. They've seen a lot of, projects pretend to be potential games that don't actually deliver, and they've seen really low quality output in the past. But, we know very senior people that were in EA and Riot and Xbox and the former CTO of Square Enix, like people that have worked on major titles like the Tekkens and Street Fighters and Final Fantasies and Sonics, and like they're embracing the space because they can see what's coming. I think a lot of companies tried. Ubisoft probably got the most backlash from what I recall, just because of its player base not being ready. And I think it goes back to one of our points earlier, which is don't talk to gamers like they're crypto people. So I think the fact that Ubisoft went in and said, "Oh, we're gonna bring NFTs into the picture," and blah blah blah, like that's what shut some people off. But if Ubisoft did what Reddit did, which was here's a bunch of digital collectibles, and then like in the fine print, also this is an NFT by the way. Like if they just went that route, it would have been received a lot better. But I think, I mean, I get it because I'm technically from that space. I'm from that side of the equation. So I understand why people could be skeptical, but I've also seen what this side of the equation is capable of doing, and therefore I know that the other side is just overly skeptical, if that makes sense. So I think it'll be just a matter of time and showcasing the actual, good products. That's why, again, we're doing what we're doing, and that's why all the, top chains and top publishing parties and so on are flexing their new gameplay stuff, because you need to attract the gamers in, and the way you attract them is the same way all the other traditional games attracted you, right? It was the moments, it was the stuff as simple as the proximity chat that's now reviving Warzone. Um, these kind of small decisions that just improve the quality of the gameplay experience is what will move people over. But I still think we have such a long way to go. Like, I've spoken to enough media, like traditional gaming media people, to know that they just have very strong opinions, and they're, I don't know, it's just this desire that they have to be convinced, and they haven't seen it yet. And it's always the same examples of, oh, but what about Axie? And asset ownership doesn't mean anything if the game all of a sudden disappears and you no longer hold anything of value. Like, it's the same arguments over and over again, but you have to respect them, because that's how this side of the equation gets better, right? Like, you get that, I see it as constructive criticism. A lot of people might see it as FUD or whatever, but I see it as criticism that can improve what you're building. Because if everyone thinks you're great, like this we're all gonna make it, culture, whatever. If everyone genuinely thinks that whatever you're building is great, then something is definitely wrong. So you need people to come from the outside, look in, and say that looks like terrible quality. I'd never play that, and then that makes you think, well, how do I improve that for the overall gamer, for the audience that I'm trying to target, and just for the sake of building a genuine fun game.
Do you know something that I think that one of the challenges in this sort of space with marketing, I think that when someone releases a game, they do a Medium article, right? And and what they do, they kind of spell out A to Z, like everything you need to click to be able to kind of buy an NFT. They don't even talk about the game. I always find that where people are really guilty of just like missing the point. It's all about, okay, you need to do this, 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 and this to get into this game. But they don't ever talk about like what it is. IGN do an article. It's all about the game preview, game experience. They're not talking about anything underneath it. And I think the game, our industry, spends so much time explaining the tech that you don't hype up the game itself enough.
I mean, I love that you mentioned that. I would highly suggest that you check out what we're building on PolkastarterGG then, because it's exactly that. We got sick of going to all these game aggregators that didn't talk about games, and they would just tell you it's on this chain, here's the token, here's the smart contract address. If you want to buy the token, it's on Uniswap. Like, where is the game though? Like, talk to me about the game itself. I think it's really funny when you look at it. I think in a couple of years we'll laugh about these situations, but yeah, you're absolutely right, 100%. I think we don't spend enough time talking about the games themselves, and we talk way too much about the NFTs and how to get them and so on and so forth. And I think people in this space definitely needed a reality check. Maybe this, current market sentiment or whatever is that reality check, but the fact that at some point in the market you could actually have the audacity to ask a gamer to spend $1,000 to try your game, when all the major gaming titles are like $50 on a PlayStation Store, just made absolutely no sense. And I always sat there. I've never bought an NFT that gated me from getting access into a game, because I always just ask myself, why would I spend 10 times what I normally spend to try a game, right? I'm not even like convinced that this is the game I'm going to play. I'm just trying the game. I think when the market crashed and all the bad stuff that happened over the past couple of months happened, people got a reality check, because now I'm seeing NFT prices that are like, oh, it's $100, or like, oh, it's $70, or like you could get it for 20. If you buy 3, it's 50. Like, I definitely think we needed that reality check, and 100%, man. I think just we need to talk more about the games and less about the blockchain stuff.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. So, Omar, I think the key themes here are making it easy to access, removing the barriers. Right, that seems to be the way to get mass adoption from what I'm hearing here. Right, Omar, we like to kind of end these segments by getting to know you in a bit more detail. So a bit of fun and friendly, fun questions, and we're gonna get to know you essentially. So don't be afraid, okay? So simple questions: online or offline?
Online.
Yeah. That is simple. Yeah. That's a simple
do I
question.
Need to elaborate, or do I?
No. That's perfect. I did the same thing. Like you did this with me.
I always do it.
One word answer, and then it's like, okay, yeah, and like leaves you more space to talk. It's like you said one word answers.
Okay.
Good answer.
Texting or talking?
Oh, that depends.
That's tough.
Depends on the person. I'd say texting 90% of the time.
Rob?
But like if it's genuine friends, then you'd probably want to talk.
Yeah, I understand the reservations. I'd probably go talking.
No, texting for me all day long. I don't want to talk to anyone ever on the phone. Just text me, email
me.
Okay,
on the phone. I thought you meant person to person. Like,
what's the difference between text? Do you not understand the difference between texting and talking?
The question has no context.
It does. You should read my notes. All the context is right there.
You don't text anyway. You WhatsApp and whatever, like on those centralized proprietary platforms that collect all your data.
Don't make me reveal the reason why you quit WhatsApp, Rob. And it's not because of Mark Zuckerberg.
It's at least 50% because of Mark Zuckerberg.
Omar, I won't go into details because it'll ruin Rob's
That's the story I need to hear.
Well, okay, I'll tell you a little bit. But essentially, Robbie quit WhatsApp because Liverpool lost a game of football.
It's not entirely true. I was like, I'll add the context to this. Like that crap question Dan just answered, right? Is giving a really bad context to this. I was already really tempted to get rid of WhatsApp when it was acquired by Facebook or Meta or whatever. And when Liverpool lost it, they lost to Leicester, and they're all like a lot of my friends are Leicester fans, and they gave me a load of grief. So it was the excuse I needed to quit at that very moment. So that's
18 texts later, Omar, like full page messages, angry faces and stuff, and he quit. It was embarrassing. I'll put it up on the screen.
What's the next question?
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Gaming or music?
Gaming,
yeah.
I
love my music.
Favorite game of all time? I'll ask you both this. Omar, what is your favorite game of all time?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It depends on my mood, though.
You can have a genre. You can have like two or three genres.
Don't edit my questions. Just what are your favorite games of all time?
Now you're saying games. You said game before.
Because like I play so many different genres. Okay, so if I had to choose like the one game that I recommend to everyone, it's probably God of War 3. Yeah. The one where he just kills all the Greek gods. And then if I had to just choose a game for like relaxing and having fun with friends, then it would be between FIFA and Call of Duty. So that's why I'm like a bit conflicted. I've also played League of Legends, so that kind of has like a tiny bit of my heart. So I don't know. But if I had to choose one game, I'd probably go God of War 3.
You're quite mainstream actually, really, in terms of what you like there, I would say.
Yeah, no, I play everything, but I like, the fun experiences, like the games that hook you in. I played the Assassin's Creeds and the Prince of Persias and stuff. I can appreciate indie games, but I'm more of a, quick, let's go Warzone, that type of player.
Ali Game Dev was worked on Assassin's Creed Valhalla, just FYI. Oh, man.
Rob, what's your favourite game of all time then?
I have categories, and it's impossible to differentiate. It's like who asks you your favourite movie, right? So, I think MMORPG, World of Warcraft, like, for the longest time, it's just phenomenal. Like, the social experience, I think, that was just phenomenal. For actual raw gaming, I always like my FPSs, so Counter-Strike, gimme. And I think nostalgia-wise, like, when Sega Mega Drives were the best you could do, I loved Golden Axe. I mean, Golden Axe, I don't know if anyone's watched Absolute Machine. And then recent game, Valheim. Great
There
game.
you go.
See, that's such a wild question because he said Counter-Strike, and I just remembered I have 10,000 hours in CS:GO. And I
Yeah,
didn't
me
even
as
think
well,
of
mate.
that.
Yeah.
I was like,
I was more of a
I forgot
1.
about that.
I was more of a 1.3 guy,
1.6.
Counter-Strike,
Oh.
pre kind of even Steam. That
That's
was
what you
my
like
level,
with
yeah.
your dress sense as well, 1.3.
What does that even mean?
Whatever you want it to mean.
See, I actually prefer indie games, and actually, what do I like?
Supersonic,
recently?
acrobatic, power battle, rocket cars.
I do love that, the original, but that is not an indie game, I would say, anymore. That is a full-blown...
Was then, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. No one knew. No one was playing that game when it came out in 2010 at all, actually. What do I like? I guess recently I've played Death's Door, which is a really cool indie game. Originally, I liked Super Metroid on the Super SNES. Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. I'm more of a kind of, I guess, a grown-up gamer than you two guys. Given that,
yeah, it's always a
given your-
back-ended compliment.
given your answers, guys, but some of us are-
we didn't even mention Metal Gear. I mean, Metal Gear. Just,
Well, you're solid.
yeah, I mean, I can't believe.
too many cutscenes. Next.
Yeah, you always did have a short attention span.
No, I'm more into gameplay, guys. You like watching sort of, your little FMV videos and stuff.
You used to like micro cars that fly through the sky.
Very technical game,
it's
much
like-
harder than CS:GO.
Yeah, I'm sure, absolutely.
We should just-
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question for you, Omar. I think I just want to do a gaming podcast now. We can argue about games because that's fun. Omar, invisibility or super strength, and this is going to say a lot about you. We're going to read a lot into these answers. Same with you, Rob.
Ridiculous.
Invisibility or super strength, please.
I'd say invisibility.
Yeah, same.
Invisibility, all the way.
Obvious reasons, yeah.
Far
Everyone?
cooler. I mean, super strength comes with like lots of drawbacks, like low life expectancy.
You're already super strong, I would say.
It's the power of the brain. I agree.
Yeah, no. Coolio. Okay, and I think that about wraps us up, guys. So thank you so much, Omar. When are the PolkastarterGaming Game Awards kind of... they're kicking up already, aren't they?
Yeah, the final event itself happens on the 15th of December. That's gonna be a hell of a show. But yeah, we've got, the shortlisted 32 games. All the nominees are, rallying the troops and getting people to vote for them. It is 90% jury voting, but there is still 10% community voting, which is substantial, technically, if you do the math, for jury seats. So I think, you could sway the tides in your favor with a bunch of loyal community followers. But I think it's going to be super fun. Got a lot of really, high quality games, a lot of really cool judges, people that I didn't expect that we'd get in the first, inaugural version of it. I expected to get them next year or whatever. But yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of prizes to give away for both the games and the community. So I'm stoked. Everyone's stoked, and we can't wait.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing it unfold. So thank you so much for joining us, mate. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Omar. Thanks,
Thank
mate.
you guys for having me. This was fun.
Thank
I
you,
need
mate.
I need to hear about the invisibility explanation later.
Yeah, we didn't say ours conveniently.
Yeah, you did.
Did I? Did I say invisibility?
I said invisibility too.
Oh yeah. I just want to be invisible anyway in day-to-day life. I think just get away from it.
Yeah, I
should
feel like
do
that's
that.
that's a deeper issue that you need to kind of.
I need to talk to someone. I
We're
think.
We're suffering from a self-esteem crisis, aren't we? Just globally, the young people.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, are you wrapping it up then?
Yep.
Fair play.
Okay, and I guess thank you everyone for tuning in today. That's our show. Please like and subscribe. Enter the competition. Send us your jokes. Go check out PolkastarterGaming.
Polkastarter.gg.
Yeah, that's right, Rob. Well done. Thank you, and see you next time on Making a Metaverse.